Hello and welcome to Grinding Meeting number 37, Materialism and Social Hierarchies. This may seem fairly obvious, but, what you have is a big part of where you're at in the social hierarchies, and I'm sure it hasn't changed that much since I was a kid, but the people who had the nice stuff tended to be higher up. But this is going to be about, I basically discovered how strong this effect is. And I'm lucky. Been at the same job for 10 years and plus, and everyone who's there because of a cutoff date based on seniority when they laid a bunch of people off, everyone who's there has been there at least 10 years. So you kind of get to, and it's a fairly large population, over 100 people. And you kind of get to observe people over time. So it's a nice little psychology lab of, completely normal and average people and quite a cross section. When you look at like the gender race breakdown, it's a little bit heavier on men than the general population, but not much, maybe only like 2/3. Racial breakdown is pretty close. I mean, it's Normiville, and it's a very interesting place to observe. Now, generally, the average age of the person there is probably over 50. So age-wise, not the best representation, but for regular people, it's beautiful. Yes, I do have sound. Good. So I got to see like a pretty huge shift in people's reaction to me. And at first it has to do with a car bumper. See, I'd purchased a car, and I did a stream about buying the car. But a student driver misread a situation, hit the gas instead of the brakes, and swerved in the wrong direction, leading to my bumper being cleaved right off the end of my car. Other than that, one of my, the side that got hit, my brake light, what do you call it? What's the word? It's like enclosure, that part that got shattered, and my trunk got a little bit bent. But other than that, there was nothing. And the part of the bumper that came off was completely cosmetic. And when I was looking at the money that I had to spend on fixing the car, I couldn't bring myself, I don't care enough about how the car looks, as long as it's street legal and it's functional and it's safe. I mean, replacing the taillight was cheap. This was like a Honda Accord, so I was able to get one on eBay and have it shipped to me within 3 days, and it was like $30. It was super cheap to get that going again. And since everything was fine, and I don't really care what my vehicle looks like. I mean, a lot of people say they don't care, but I literally don't care. And even now, some people are probably getting a little triggered, like, wait, you had this thing that was messed up and you didn't fix it, and you just drove around with it like that? And yeah, because I literally don't care. And a lot of that comes from the autism and not having the connection to the, social hierarchies that a neurotypical person will. And I want to be careful in this. I don't want to make it sound like I'm judging people for caring about material things, because the social hierarchy is the water that normal people swim in. And it's largely invisible to them. And that's okay. That's the way it's supposed to be. I am the weirdo in this scenario, and I don't want to make it seem like I'm casting moral judgments on people for just being normal. But at the same time, it's kind of fascinating. And I hope my fascination doesn't come off as judgy. So it was really weird how people would approach me about the bumper. Even the nicer people, it would be like, they approached me kind of like, if you had a buddy and he was he had a little BO situation. You kind of approach him quiet, like, dude, you really need to do something about that. I don't want to make a big thing out of it, but you really need to get that bumper fixed, or yeah, why haven't you gotten that fixed? That, you really should do that. Like it's they're not being jerks. They just sense something that I don't. That having a vehicle in that situation will cause me to drop in social status. And somewhere in the mix, depending on the person, if they're associated with you, that will lower their social value. Another analogy is kind of like that movie or TV show where a semi-popular girl who has more popular friends starts dating a guy who's way below her station. And she doesn't care. She really likes this guy. But her friends would approach her and something like, why are you dating him? He's a loser. He doesn't even have a car. Do you know where he lives? His dad works in a factory. Like why are you lowering your status like this? And it kind of felt like that was the talk I was getting. And those are the less nice people. Other people, the even less nice kind of jerk people, started projecting their own insecurities onto me and attacking based on those insecurities. Like somewhere in their processing, they thought about, man, if I didn't have the money to fix my bumper and I had to drive to work like that, oh my God, they start, because they understand that it's a loss in status, and they're so insecure about status that they can't imagine someone who isn't made insecure by this. And excuse me. Then they project that weakness onto you and they will attack you like, oh yeah, nice bumper over there. Wow. So making like jokes they think are at like your expense. But in the moment, I'm just like, I know exactly what they're doing and why they're doing it. And they're pretty much just signaling, truths about them. It's not really about me. And they're very, very off-put when you're not the least bit bothered, or you make an additional joke at your own expense. It really, really throws them off. So there was a range of responses to me driving a car to work that was missing a cosmetic bumper. The cosmetic part of the bumper, I should say. And I just couldn't care. Even though I was getting this response from people, it was more curious than anything else. Thinking back on it, I didn't make the connection, but it was also a time where supervisors seemed to be a bit more dickish to me, let's say. So, let's fast forward to almost 2 weeks ago. That other vehicle had a host of issues, and it was going to require some money. And, I got like, almost a year and a half, almost 2 years out of the car. That's good enough with what I paid for it. I kind of have the disposable car theory. If you can find a used car that's sufficiently mechanically sound that you're going to be able to get a couple of years out of it without really putting any money into it, and you can buy it outright, it's a lot more cost efficient than, financing a vehicle and then having to make repairs on it and stuff. So, I got what I wanted out of it. And when I was looking for another car, and it's been a little rough, dealerships are finally starting to stock lower cost cars. They seem to have this, since they don't have as many new cars to sell, they were still stuck in this philosophy of if we keep inexpensive cars on the lot, it's harder to upsell them to cars that we can make more money on. And a moment on new car dealerships. Their business model is very similar to a movie theater, where the thing that you would assume they make their money on isn't the thing they make their money on, and where they actually make the money might be a surprise. In the case of movie theaters, most movie theaters make little or no money off of ticket sales. Like, paying for the movie, the money that people spend on tickets is not what sustains them. It's concessions. The concessions is that's why it's so ridiculously expensive to get stuff. Same with the dealership. You think they make their money selling the cars. That is a tiny amount of the money they make. Where they actually make the money is financing. Either, I don't want to say kickbacks, but basically financing companies will basically, whether they're financing you or whether they farm you off to some other financing source, the money they make a lot of money off of financing. And I actually looked into it at one point, and it's pretty ridiculous. Unless you have like stellar credit, you're going to be paying so much more. And I'm not down for that. But the dealerships are starting to realize, since, the glut in new car production, there just aren't as many cars available to sell. And a lot of the cars that are at the dealership, they can't actually sell them because then they won't be able. They're selling potential cars. The dealership is the place where you go to look at the vehicle so that you can order it, and maybe you'll get it in 4 to 12 months. So they've shifted over, and they're actually having some more used vehicles, but they seem to be getting sleazier. I looked at a couple different vehicles, and they had overt mechanical issues that were I don't drive much, but they, like one vehicle, it had a pigeon-toed alignment, and one of the wheel bearings was super loud, like rivaling the engine. Yeah, they had, well, as a matter of fact, I know for a fact that they knew about it, because when I was like, hey, these are major issues, you probably have your mechanics take a look at it. Then the car was in front of the store, and then, they do that wait thing, and they come back, okay, well, we'll do the repair, we'll split the cost of the repairs with you and add that to the price of the vehicle. And it's like, their mechanics never went out and looked at the car. They knew already what was wrong with it. They were just hoping, I don't know, I suppose somebody would be stupid enough to buy it with, a couple serious issues. And I ran into a lot of that. And then they also do other little games where, it's not important to what I'm talking about. So I was basically, if it's in my price range, if it appears mechanically sound, I'm buying it. I don't care if it's a pink convertible with a hardtop or a minivan. I don't care. I just need to get to work. And I don't care what the vehicle looks like. Oddly enough, the first one that fit the criteria, let me put it this way. If I, came into a large amount of cash and I could purchase any type of vehicle that I want, I would not be looking at big black SUVs that look like an FBI agent should be stepping out of them. Not quite my personality, but that's what I came across. And it fit the criteria, so I bought it. And it's very similar to the vehicle in the thumbnail of the video. And it was weird. So I kept going outside and looking at it like that. That is my vehicle. Weird, almost identity crisis in a way. Because I like, my last car was it was a Honda Accord, 5-speed, 4-cylinder engine, fairly low to the ground, a sedan. And that's typically what I get. But this giant 4-wheel drive, massive V8, towing hitch, roof rack, limited edition trim, floodlights, hitch with a massive towing capacity. This is not how I pictured myself. I didn't think that I had pictured myself, but after getting it, clearly I did. The biggest shock was how people at work reacted to it. It was like I started dating a really popular girl. Except there wasn't really the jealousy. Like, there were so many people that, like I fixed the BO problem. And it's like, you smell great. And numerous people came up to me telling me, hey, that's a really nice vehicle. Yeah, you look really good in that. One guy, and to put this into context, this is the guy I'm all but certain was tripping balls at work because he kept there's like this build ticket that goes with the part as it goes by, and he was at a station where if we have extra people, we put them there because they can do a thing that kind of makes other people's job easier and improves the quality, but it's not really necessary. So he didn't have like a big workload. And he was just slowly running his fingers over the tag, how people really get into like textures and things that like push back. And he was just fixated on it, running his fingers over it slowly, and then would get fixated on these other objects and like just kind of change their orientation and look at them. And he kind of kept wandering away from his station, then realizing it and coming back. Like, I'm pretty sure this guy was tripping balls. Which, good on him, if you can pull it off at work, more power to you. I got no interest, but if you're stuck, if you know you're going to be stuck someplace boring the rest of the shift, he may have just misjudged the dosage of his edibles or something, because that could be kind of a lot like tripping. But at any rate, this was the guy, and he told me that I looked like John Wick stepping out of that vehicle. To be clear, I do not look like John Wick. Maybe Nicolas Cage's less attractive brother is about as good as I could do. And that was a really big surprise to me. Like, wow, he's really And then later I saw that he has a late model Mercedes SUV that as close as a Mercedes and like a Chevy can get. They were similar, it was black, really good shape considering the year, like really nice. Like if you weren't into cars, you wouldn't immediately know that it was as old as it is. And then I got a vehicle that was very, very much like his. So it's like, did we just become best friends because of our cars? And the reaction of the women, I should also say, was kind of surprising. Not so much, not all of them, but there were a couple that just started treating me very differently, finding excuses to come up and talk with me, or getting work assignments near me, and like if sometimes two people go to talk at the same time. A lot of times you can assess your social status by, it's almost like a game of chicken. And I'm pretty, courteous. I'm not really terribly dominant, but I noticed a definite shift in the, what do you call it? The verbal game of chicken, the four-way stop of a conversation. who yields. That was noticeable to me. And two, who I have never, there's a lot of people there. There's a handful, maybe two dozen people that I've never ever even talked to, because I've never, we've been on opposite sides of the plant and stuff. Found weird pretexts to come up and ask me something. And the supervisor's reaction to me has been really strange. It actually creeps me out. Like yesterday, two people from management came directly up to me, and now there was other stuff going on, but to compliment me on what a good job I had been doing in a particular context. And that has happened maybe 3 or 4 times in the last 10 years, and it happened twice in one day. Pretty anomalous, I must say. It is just fascinating how much something like this can affect people. And since I went from, possibly, almost certainly the lowest status car in the parking lot to, well, I wouldn't say, it's definitely not one of the most valuable vehicles. It's still probably one of the least valuable vehicles in the parking lot. But just the nature of it has such an impact on people. And I have another friend who got himself a late model Porsche SUV, and he reported a similar thing with the supervisors. He's not like a psychology nerd, and he's not autistic, so he probably wouldn't have noticed the same extreme change. But he definitely noticed that the supervisors started treating him different. And I have to reassess, because I I had a negative judgment of people who'd get the big black pickup trucks or the big black SUVs, or, you know, people. I thought that it was basically a sign of someone being insecure and that they have to make up for their lack of confidence with a vehicle. And then I'm not saying that's not true, but pragmatically, your position in the social hierarchy will affect the quality of your life. And this is why so many people are drawn into financing the highest status generating vehicle they can get their hands on, because it's part of, the reality. The water you swim in is affected by, the materialists, the material possessions you have. And I've been a little bit too judgy. And I realized that I also realized I had these, kind of negative judgments of people who bought vehicles kind of like mine. And part of the reason I had so much trouble accepting that this was now my vehicle is because I had these negative judgments of people, and now I must apply them to myself and resolve that situation. I do like the vehicle though. It is nice being high up above everybody else. And it is obviously a gas guzzler, but I have a relatively pretty short drive to work. So in, I don't know, just shy of 2 weeks, I've only used a quarter tank. Now that could be because it has a massive tank on it, but it's not going to cost me a whole lot to run, a giant gas guzzler. And that's part of why the vehicle is so cheap. It had a lot of miles, although whoever had it before me took really good. It still had both set of keys. Seemed quite mechanically sound. But because gas is getting expensive and you got to pay more in insurance on that compared to like a small sedan, I got it for dirt cheap. Like I'm honestly surprised how cheap I got the vehicle for. I think that's about all. So I guess the point is, people are a lot more influenced by material things on an unconscious level, and collectively, it could be you could not care at all about the status generated by a vehicle, but if you prefer not to get treated like crap by your supervisors, and you'd rather not, or you wouldn't mind being a little bit further up in the hierarchy, and a social hierarchy that you're in, like a work setting, it's actually not a bad idea to have a higher status vehicle. It is interesting where I work, where I gained the skills, years ago, that if I wanted to rise up in the social hierarchy, I would. But it's kind of like more money, more problems. Like higher status means more drama. In other words, if you're at the bottom, it sucks because everybody's crapping on you, including the low status insecure people who do it quite regularly. And through a process over the years, I call the rolled up newspaper of people coming to crap on you. If you can make them feel, and I've talked about this in other videos, if you can make them walk away from, they come up to you to try to like basically exert their status over you. But if you can leave them walking away, even more insecure, and basically you spank them every time they come by, most of them will stop. Some of them will it'll be longer and longer between the times. But I'd pretty much gotten to the point where virtually nobody was really messing with me, and I didn't really want to climb any higher, because once you get higher, then when people are in conflicts, they want to seek you out for your opinion, or your support or whatever. It almost becomes like a political thing. So you don't want to be too low because everybody craps on you, and that's drama. But you don't want to be too high, and the higher you get, you'll have people above you who become insecure that you might be displacing them, and these people are a great deal more skilled than the lower people, and you don't want to get into that fight either. So trying to find a nice place. Hopefully I didn't overshoot the mark. But I gotta say, the compliments from management are really, really awkward and makes me insecure in a different way. It's like, were you buttering me up before you fire me? What's going on here? Well, this was Grounding Meaning 37, Materialism and Social Hierarchies. I am the Expert Layman. You all have a great day.